what do you see the role of beauty playing in the meaning crisis in general? Because, we both are probably in a similar position. In order for people that are coming at it and are learning about orthodoxy, it seems like beauty is also part of how they find a kind of solution to the meaning crisis, which would have seemed surprising to someone, even 50 years ago. We'd say that one of the solutions to nihilism is beauty. But if you want to tell us a bit about how you see that functioning.
I mean, there's so many levels in which to answer that, and there's more philosophical, more theological. I mean, I'm just starting with basic biology, which is that, most living things out there do not have a cerebral cortex, and yet they're making decisions just fine, and they're surviving and they're propagating, and they are they are able to discern, the structure of the world, to the extent they need to, and to respond appropriately. And so, how are they doing this? They're doing this through sensation. And if you go down to, the most basic cellular level, it's somehow at the level of chemistry that, things are, the paramecium, the bacteria is out there sensing and reacting. So to imagine that human beings, unless you are an exceptional theist, I mean, not even a theist, but a Gnostic, then to imagine that human beings can divorce feeling from knowing, or divorce knowing from feeling and sensing, is really ridiculous. I mean, it's just nuts. Everything is out there making decisions and flourishing without the brain. I mean, yes, some things have brains, and then that's another story,
Why do you formulate it as beauty? Because if the way that I would formulate it originally is I would talk about goodness, in the way that Dante talks about goodness, or in the idea of that which is desirable, maybe even just that, like the idea of moving towards that which is desirable. And so why is it that you feel the need to formulate it as beauty?
Well, didn't Aristotle say that the beautiful is the radiance of the good or something?
Yeah.
So to survive, we need to remember again, how to think visually, how to think in terms of wholes. We're trying to design a new major right now at the college, and I can't say what it is, but the thing that convinces me that it's worth doing is the beauty of it. And then the question, has arisen, well, is that a sufficient grounds? It isn't, maybe, but maybe it is, because a feeling for beauty or for harmony is, it's the fastest way often to discern the health of a situation. And health, is a cipher for that underlying, good functioning. So, I mean, we're not computers. We are, we're biological beings, and we're just, we have that capacity, and we don't have the possibility of thought without that capacity.
Yeah, I think that's right. But there's an intuitive aspect to the way you're presenting it, which is that, our capacity to perceive health is it's a good way to talk about beauty in a way that might stretch people. When I look at someone, I perceive health very much so, because my whole being is there to detect that, to know, even in terms of like infection, even something like that, or to understand the situation I'm dealing with. And a lot of our markers for physical beauty are really just health markers and symmetry markers, to be able to tell, how aligned someone is towards reality. And so we can then understand that humans have that capacity in general, not just towards people, but also towards situations. When you enter a room and there's disorder, if people are moving in ways that is not normal, like, let's say you walked into a room where people have just had a fight, you will be able to detect that intuitively without thinking yet, because there'll be things will be laid out in a manner, and the movements of the people will be happening in a disorderly way, and you'll catch that really fast, even with before you're thinking. And so, I think that's an interesting way of talking about a very, very immediate manner in which beauty matters.
There's so many aspects of this, and one of them is, I think, the pivotal chapter for the 21st century is chapter 22 of The Death and Life of Great American Cities by Jane Jacobs, my friend and mentor. And that's the chapter where she presents Warren Weaver's summation of the past 360 years of science, science since we've had the scientific method. Um, and he says, although science, is vast and does a lot of things, in fact, there are three kinds of problems that we know how to solve. Three, as a genus of problem. There's only three. And one of them is the problem in organized complexity. And what Jane Jacobs does, the problem with it's a living system, it's an organism. And society is like that. The economies are that, cities are that, families are that, institutions are that, companies are that. And when you are in that realm, Jane Jacobs gives you, here are the tactics for here are the tactics for understanding those kind of systems. And in chapter 8 of my book, I lay this out and I add several tactics of my own that are implied in her work or that I've but an eye for beauty, training in beauty or training in grammar, because for me, beauty, goodness, truth is the trivium of grammar, logic, rhetoric. But training in pattern is the best training for understanding living systems or just systems. And
Yeah.
you'll a person trained, they know in a flash.
Mm. And
And Jane Jacobs specifically says this, all the statistics that you can compile about, in this case, it was Boston's North End, just, they don't tell you the full story. But to go there and observe unaverage clues, now you said, well, we better look for different statistics.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I think the city example is a great example in the sense that, and I mean, everybody's had these experiences. Like, you're walking in a city that you don't know. All of a sudden you take a turn, and then all of a sudden you realize that you've taken the wrong turn, and that now you know that you're not in a place you probably should be, or that you're in a place where all of a sudden the risk has gone up,
Yeah.
substantially. And you can tell that even if there's no people there, like, even if there aren't people there that are suspicious or whatever, you can tell by a myriad of signs that are coming together in a pattern, that is saying that to you. And that, I think, is a great example to understand. And you can understand how sometimes, the cliche of fixing a city by saying we don't want broken windows, right? That kind of cliche, where it's to say that if you actually transform the pattern of the city itself, you can even transform the culture that people live in. Because if I'm walking through a dump, I know that I can just toss something on the ground and it doesn't matter. Even if I might even not do that. But if I'm walking through a place that is cared for and pristine and is full of care and attention, then even my worst habits might be reined in by the space in which I'm in. I mean, that's a powerful testimony to beauty right there.
So yeah, I think training in the liberal arts or the fine arts, is vital for people to acquire wisdom or to lead at big picture level. Like, you shouldn't trust leaders who don't have a good aesthetic sensibility. And anyone anyone could see that our approach to farming, this like highly centralized, government subsidized, the Cargills and all this, and the erasure of the family farm and of rural culture and the chemicals and of different kinds, the fertilizers and the pesticides and all this, that compared to regenerative agriculture, anyone with a liberal arts degree will know one is sick and one is healthy.
Yeah.
But people with trained in the other kinds of science, reductive or statistical, will not see that. And they will push us to the point of collapse. And that brings us eventually, now or later, to Ian McGilchrist, the master and his emissary.
Mm.
Because what he's doing in that book is saying, is basically saying that the brain hemispheres really are meant to unfold in a beauty, goodness, truth sequence. And that we've lost that. We've lost the right hemisphere. We've lost the feeling for wholes. And we are reflexively repeating things, that are good, that are driving us to exhaustion and destruction.
Uh-huh.